Have you ever dealt with a family member who is struggling with managing anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive tendencies, negative thought patterns, and just this almost hysterical way of managing life and their own problems? Do you know a family member who tends to manipulate you, use your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses against you, pull you into arguments without any real need to discuss something that you guys disagree on or having an issue with, but they just need to argue because for some reason that's the only way that they know how to communicate? Well, if you know exactly what I am talking about, then this video is for you. This video, I'm going to highlight emotional extortion and neurotic behavior in family members. And you can also apply this to your parents as well. Dealing with these particular challenges is not an easy thing. And even for those of us who have been in the field for many years, those of us who are psychotherapists and, we're trying to manage our clients, our patients, and some of the challenges within their own lives, it's a difficult thing to manage when you have somebody in your family who's neurotic and you also have somebody else in your family who, or maybe it's the same person, who engages in emotional extortion. It's just one of the most difficult things to try to navigate. So in today's video, I'm going to give you tips on how to manage this. ABC 1, 2, 3 concrete tips on how to manage this within your family. But before we jump in, let me briefly introduce myself in case you are new. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. All right. So, I know you guys know exactly what blackmail is, right? It's when somebody takes something personal that you don't want anybody else to know, or they take something that you hold in confidence, right? And they spread it to other people. They tell other people, or they share the information online through email, through text messages, or they take photos, which is the worst, and they post them online in an attempt to weaken you, in an attempt to kind of undercut you, and make you the insubordinate one, right? They get to rise above you for that moment that they are sharing all your vulnerabilities and all the things that you don't want shared. So that's blackmail. Emotional blackmail is known as emotional extortion. And I did a video on this a couple years ago. I'm going to go ahead and post it right up here. At the end of this video, go ahead and click on that card, because in that video, I described to you what this looks like within families. But emotional extortion is really just using your feelings and your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses and, maybe your mental health history, maybe your sex abuse history, your, really shameful past that you don't want other people to know about. They take that information because they know it's going to keep you emotionally stuck. They know that they're going to be able to control you with it. They take that emotional information that you don't want other people to know about, and they use it against you, right? An example of this would be something like, let's say you're divorcing from your husband, and you guys are having a really, icky kind of a divorce, for lack of a clinical term. There's anger, there's blackmail, there's harassment, police have been involved, the courts have been involved, lawyers all over the place in the case, judges, right? Maybe there's some physical and emotional abuse as well, and possibly some PTSD. So let's say that this is the climate or the state of your situation. And one way that a spouse who is manipulative and controlling can emotionally blackmail you is by saying something like, you know what? I'm going to tell our son you had an affair. I'm going to tell him that you had an affair with your coworker at work, and this coworker was once your boss, and so therefore there's a conflict of interest. I'm going to tell our son that you're the reason why this marriage is failing. Emotional blackmail. I see it a lot in my office. And when it comes across to me or it comes across my desk, I'm like, oh my God, not another case like this. Because what happens is the child ends up being pulled into the middle of that chaos. And it's only to weaken your defenses, right? If you're dealing with something like this. Now, if you are talking just about your family and you're not married, then emotional blackmail or emotional extortion could look something like this. So let's say you're suffering from delusions and hallucinations. You might have a psychotic disorder, or you might have post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's also some, false beliefs that are really, tightly held by yourself. And there's also some hallucinations where you're hearing and seeing things. You decided to sign yourself into a hospital just to be on the safe side and to make sure that you're healthy. Well, your family member, every time you get into an argument, they use that against you. Well, you're the one who went to the hospital when you shouldn't have. You're the one who's seeing and hearing things. It's not me, right? You're the one who decided to smoke that drug and became, crazy, right? You may hear this from family members. You're the one with the mental health problems. I've also heard things in my office in the past, like, you're the one with bipolar disorder. I'm not, if there's a really messy child custody thing going on in your family as well, you might hear things like, I'm the more stable parent, and here's why. I'm not the one with borderline personality disorder, so I should take the kids, All of those things, we can categorize them under the heading of emotional extortion, but it's emotional blackmail. Now, there's different ways that emotional blackmail can occur. It can occur through email and text, phone calls, photos, blatant threats. I'm going to take the kids away, or I'm going to put you out of my house because you're not in control of your emotions or your behavior, passive aggressive, right? Huffing and blowing, walking by you with this quiet, snobbish disposition, refusing to help you financially, right? Taking financial support out from under you. That's another way. Lies, pathological lies, right? Misinformation, leaving out details, which is kind of lying, but in an indirect way, right? All of these things are emotional blackmail. Now, let's move over to neurotic behavior. Let's say this individual who is using emotional extortion against you also has neurotic behavior. That is a very bad mix, and here's why. Somebody who's neurotic has this automatic unconscious need to be in control. This automatic unconscious need to be in control. They may have obsessive compulsive disorder, where there's an obsession and a compulsion to reduce the anxiety of that obsession. Let me give you an example of this. So hand washing, right? Some people have OCD where there's an anxiety about germs. And the only way that they can reduce that anxiety of being infected or having germs on them is to wash their hands all the time. Somebody with OCD, that seems to be a little bit more behavioral, where, they're engaging in ritualistic behaviors every day. They have this unconscious, automatic desire to reduce the anxiety of that OCD behavior. And so the way they do that is to engage in things that's going to reduce the behavior. Washing hands, doing rituals, counting so many times, checking the light switches, things like that, okay? I'm sure you all know what that is, but I just want to make sure. So that's OCD. Now, obsessive compulsive personality disorder is a situation where you have OCD tendencies, but it's a personality disorder this time, right? Which is a pervasive, chronic, unchangeable pattern of behavior. And what happens with obsessive compulsive personality disorder is the person's very rigid with schedules. The person's very rigid with times. You have to be on the money with them. You can't be late, right? Sometimes they are also really strict and rigid when it comes to routines. When it comes to how much time they spend on something, right? So these people are not just obsessive compulsive disorder, they are obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And so this is how they operate, how they think, how they feel about things, how they behave, okay? So if you have a person in your family who's neurotic, you're likely going to see obsessive compulsive personality disorder traits, okay? The other part of this is, these people may have tons of panic attacks. They may have an unconscious, strong desire to control and possess. They also have negative thought patterns. They may be suicidal at times. And they kind of have this judgmental edge about them. You have to do things the way they want you to do things or you don't measure up, okay? So neurotic individuals are complicated outside of emotional extortion, imagine how it would be if you're experiencing this to have a neurotic individual also emotionally blackmailing you, because that's the only way that they can remain in control. You know, it's a scary thought. So let me give you some suggestions on how to manage these family members. The first way that I want you to kind of, practice managing these kind of individuals is by not reacting. I know that sounds so simple and it's so practical, but it's so true. People who are engaging in emotional blackmail, emotional extortion of you are really looking to possess and control your life, right? It's almost like they feed off of your reaction to what they're doing to you, right? The only reason that they are emotionally controlling you is because they know it works. But the minute you stop letting them feel that it works, the better things probably will go. And sometimes they will up the ante, right? So let's say, for example, you decide to take my suggestion and you say, you know what? I'm not going to answer you when you call me tonight to emotionally blackmail me. I'm not going to answer the phone. If you don't answer the phone, they're probably going to email you. If you don't answer the email, they're probably going to text you. If you don't answer the text, they're probably going to take to social media. Be okay with that. Learn to get to a place where you are confident in yourself, that you are confident that no matter what they do, they're not going to destroy your life. Now, it may feel like that, right? Because that's their intent. But sometimes they function off of your reactions alone. So if you can somehow master the art of not responding, you have also mastered the art of controlling the controller. And for some of you, it sounds like, I'm not going to be able to do that. Practice it, okay? Practice being okay with the anxiety associated with not responding to that email or that text, not responding to that phone call, not responding to that social media post, right? Practice being okay with the anxiety associated with not responding. The next thing, protect your data. So if you know that this person may have access to your social media, your phone numbers, your bills, your mail, your text messages, whatever, your work address, protect that information, right? And what I mean by that is change passwords, shut down your social media, put it on private. Nobody really needs to know you went to Disneyland last year. Protect that until this person is more in control of their own behaviors, or when the law has put them in their place, right? Because sometimes people who emotionally blackmail you end up going to jail because they overstep the boundary, but protect your information, keep things on lock down so that you do not have to see this individual take your social media post and send it to your boss, for example, right? Don't give them that power and control over you. You do not need to be on social media that much, So just kind of think of that, is there something on my Facebook page that can be used against me? Is there something where this person can, cut something out of the photo and place it on the photo and make it look like I'm somewhere I'm not, right? You really want to get to a place where you start thinking like somebody who's a narcissist and a sociopath and someone who emotionally blackmails, right? Because that's the only way that you're going to cope with who they are. You got to know how they think. The next thing is explore their past, right? So you want to be able to look at this family member and say, okay, have they been incarcerated before? Have they been in a mental health institution before? Have they been charged with harassment and stalking in the past, right? If they have, then the likelihood of you suffering in that way is probably about 100% in that case, right? So explore their past. Past behaviors sometimes can predict future behaviors. I talk about that right up here in terms of parents. Can their past behavior predict where they are now? Can it tell us something that we need to know? Absolutely. So you want to be able to take their history and say, you know what? I need to do some research. I'm going to go online and figure out what that charge was and what happened and when did it happen and why. Okay? It's okay to do some research to protect yourself. The other thing is, try to read those red flags. So if you have a family member who you don't really know that well and they don't seem to be very stable, or they seem controlling, possessive, or unstable, you need to take that as a red flag. Use your intuition. If you don't feel right, don't get any closer to them, or, kind of love them from a distance kind of mentality. You know what I mean? Protect your territory. That's all this is about, right? Taking what belongs to you and protecting it from this person who's neurotic and likes to emotionally blackmail people. Okay? The next thing is I think acceptance is important. So accept what the situation is. I think a lot of people go into denial. They say things like, I don't want my family members to never talk to me again. I don't want to believe that my family is this way. But, we all have to grapple with things in this life that we don't want to accept. And, that's the hardest part about life, right? We have on this side of the world, or this side of our perspective, all the wonderful things that we should be able to have access to, right? But then on this side of the world, which is reality as well, we have to get used to not having the things that the world tells us we need, right? We're all not going to be models. You know what I mean? We're not all going to have straight hair. We're not all going to have curly hair. We're not all going to be a particular race or ethnicity, right? We're not all going to have a wonderful family. You have to learn to get okay, be okay with the reality that those may not be the cards that you've been dealt. And that's one of the hardest things I think we as humans have a really hard time with, accepting that that person over there could have exactly what I don't have. You're going to be, I think, a whole lot better psychologically and emotionally. And even, I'm going to say, look for patterns over time. Look for patterns over time. I mean, if this is a family member who, has had a long history of lying, has had a long history of manipulation, has had a long history of blackmail, you want to see that as a sign. One of the things that we as psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists do in the field of psychology is we really try to zone in on past behavior, because it can tell us something about where you are now. It could tell us a lot if something goes wrong down the road, right? Because sometimes you get into psychotherapy and everything is good until maybe that 6-month mark, and then you start seeing everything you need to see. Or sometimes things are good up until that 2-year mark sometimes, or 3 years, or 5 years, even 10. And things go haywire. The only thing that we as professionals can rely on is your record. And a lot of times we pull medical records for that reason. We want to know, how did the past behaviors possibly affect where you are now? So you want to do that with family members, you know what I mean? Look for patterns over time. The other thing is, I think this is more of a spiritual tip. I think it's okay to be forgiving, right? Be forgiving. I think that builds your own character. I think that frees your own mind and your own soul. And, I also think that kind of gets you out from under the burden of anger, the burden of hurt and pain, right? Because it's burdening just to carry that. It's like a, I'm trying to think, what do they put on the dolls, guys? I can't think of what it is. I don't know. I'll put it on the screen whenever I can remember what it is. I have terrible memory. What I think you need to be aware of and kind of consider is abandoning the idea that family is everything. I did a video right up here. You can click on that in the cards whenever you're ready, or at the end of the video. And in that video, I really try to dispel some myths about family. You want to abandon the erroneous belief in our culture that family is everything. Family is beautiful. Family is wonderful. Good parents are wonderful, right? If you have that, you are blessed. But it doesn't mean that everybody has that, right? And if you find yourself, which most of you are on my channel, as one who doesn't have a really good family, then you have to abandon that imprisoning mindset that family is everything. It is not. You still have life if you don't have a good family. You still have some value to yourself if you don't have a good family, Get therapy for yourself. It doesn't always have to be therapy to talk about negative things. It could be therapy to have a positive relationship with someone. It could be therapy to somehow get rid of all the burdens that are on your mind, somewhere where you can ask questions and grow. And sometimes psychotherapy is really helpful in teaching you how to deal with somebody who's neurotic or somebody who is emotionally blackmailing you. To me, if you find a really good therapist, and I'm like this with a lot of my kiddos, a lot of my teenagers, and a lot of my adult clients, we are very, very close. We connect, and I really try to build that relationship so that when everything else in the world fails, they will know that they can rely on me as long as I'm available and as long as I'm strong enough to deal with it. But I think it's important to find a therapist where you can develop that kind of relationship. It is healing, to say the least. This is a tough topic, guys, and this is a long video because this is a lot to put into one video, but I'm definitely going to come back and do some more videos on this. Let me know in the comment section below if this was helpful. Share your thoughts, your experience experiences, your questions. I will be watching the comment section, and after every video, I'm always like scanning the comment section. So put all your questions and information in there. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the like button if this was helpful. Hit that bell as well so that you can know every time I post a video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.